Every farm has a story. When it comes to dairy farming, these stories are often only heard by the animals raised, the land stewarded, and the family that makes it all possible. Join me, Dairy Gal Val, as I interview individuals from across the dairy industry, both within the United States and across the globe, discussing topics like farm management, the food industry, ag business and technology, and most importantly, their farm story. This is the Dairy Hour Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of the Dairy Hour Podcast. I am your host, Val Lavigne, or Dairy Gal Val. So today's episode, we're going to take a little bit of a turn. I feel like mental health and exercise, especially in women in agriculture, is a huge problem and something that does not get enough awareness brought about currently. And I really want to spread the word about my journey. And I am joined today with the one and only Francesca Fontanelli. Has zero farming experience. However, she's learning. Anyone that's around me, I enjoy teaching them about cows and dairy because that's just what I do. But Francesca is one of the great trainers at the gym that I have gone to for the past, 15 months. And I've gotten to know her really well, and I'm really excited for this conversation. So buckle up. It could be an emotional roller coaster, but I can guarantee you, you will not regret listening to this. Francesca, how are you today?
I'm good, Val. How are you?
Good. And I was just telling Francesca earlier, we did burst training this morning, and it was like one of my favorite protocols ever. And I was on fire today, so I'm really excited. I'm all jacked up today. It's exciting.
Ready. Ready.
So let's go. If you want to kind of introduce yourself, Francesca, so people know who they're talking or who's talking to them.
Yeah, so I'm Francesca. As Val said, I'm one of the trainers at Burn Boot Camp, where Val has been a member for quite some time now. And just like a little small snippet about how I got into this, I started as a trainer at Burn in the middle of COVID, actually. So I had a full-time job at the time as a graphic designer for a local company here, and was temporarily laid off, as you know, some people may be able to relate to, probably maybe not as many of you guys that would be listening in this audience, because you know, agriculture and farming, that stuff doesn't take a break really. So in my free time, I got my personal trainer certification. You know, I've kind of always liked working out, liked fitness, and then transitioned after COVID back to my full-time job, and then Burn was a little bit on the side, just being here part-time. And then after what we're going to kind of get into, the situation in the, you know, journey that I've been through, now I've transitioned into full-time really here at Burn. So being here so often at Burn, that's where I am right now in the background, is, you know, how I've gotten to know Val and so many of our members so well. You know, I do spend a lot of my time here. So being a part of a lot of different journeys in fitness and wellness.
So to take a quick second and just plug on Burn, and we're going to get more into this, and this is not just like a Burn Bootcamp ad. This is a fitness community. I don't know. It's just the goodness of a fitness community. It is so nice. It is such a safe spot. And I go there and pretty much nobody there really knows anything about cows or agriculture or what I do, but I'm always welcome there. And it's just amazing how these trainers know where your level is at. They know what you're capable of, and they're just so good at finding where you need to be. It just amazes me as how even people that are newer come in and they're just like, taking it easy, and the trainers just know what they're capable of by watching them. And that's just the whole thing just fascinates me. It's amazing. It's such a great community. It's such a positive community, and it's definitely something that has made a huge impact in my life over the past 15 months. And I am excited, obviously, to stay there for, essentially ever. I think I'm a lifer. I don't think I'm going anywhere. So let's go back, Francesca, if you want to talk about growing up, like, were you involved in sports, or did you really not have an interest in fitness? What was your kind of take early on?
Yeah, so for me, I wouldn't say that I mean, I was always active, and I think I'm mid-30s right now. So we grew up in a time where kids are outside playing, they're outside with the kids down the street so the lights come on and that kind of stuff. We were always playing kickball with the neighbors or, whatever it may be. I was a competitive cheerleader my whole life, which maybe contrary to popular belief, I don't know your stance on it, is a very active sport.
Very.
But even just being into fitness, I, even since I can remember, 15, 16 years old, I had my part-time job at the mall, and then after work, I would go and, go to Planet Fitness or wherever it was. And over the years, I've explored many different, fitness classes, fitness communities. But I think since then, I've always tried to be as active as possible when it comes to working out and that type of stuff. You know, not, I would say, like I said, not really a ton of sports and that kind of stuff. I think it just is a different day and age when we grew up where you weren't sitting on the couch on the iPad or, that kind of thing. And, you know, trying to make the most of summer and being outside and all that stuff. So I always tried to be as active as possible, which I think is what helped me kind of find the path that I'm on now. You know, just what you get and how you feel after working out and staying active, obviously, feels
It's
so much better than when you're sedentary and that kind of stuff.
100%. The endorphins are fantastic.
Yeah.
And with my adult ADHD or whatever it is that I have, it helps me focus so much. I was just talking to someone the other day and I was like, I can spend, because between driving to the gym, the 45-minute class, and driving home, it's close to 2 hours. And I was like, I can spend 2 hours going to the gym in the morning, and the rest of my day is so much more productive.
Yep.
Whereas if I stay home because I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so much to do, I don't get as much done as if I would just take that time for myself. So I mean, that right there is really nice. And it just makes me feel so much better that I'm actually doing something with my body, moving it and, pushing it to the great things that I'm learning that my body actually is capable of that I never thought that it was capable of. So it's an exciting thing to see the transformation, that's for sure.
Absolutely. And I think for me too, when I said that I was a graphic designer, I think that's a big part of why I left that job and was okay doing that is, I always loved art as a kid. But then being able to, when they tell you to be creative, but then you have to sit down at a desk all day, those two things didn't really meld in my mind as the most productive way to be as a creative person, let alone, like you say, a lot of people, and I think you're lucky in the sense of you are active and you are moving for the rest of your day. You're not sitting down a lot with the career and the industry that you are in. But most people are where they're sitting down majority of the day. So any movement that you could get in your day, is better than none. And making sure that we are taking care of our bodies and moving, because most of us do sit for a majority of the day, depending on what field you're in. So
Yeah, and I kind of hit with about a large bout of pneumonia and a couple follow-up bouts of pneumonia in 2020, let's see, 2022. um it just kind of shocked me into like, I only kind of get one shot at this. Like, I need to be the best that I can. I have 3 children that are depending on me. I have a husband that depends on me. And I not only do I have a normal family like everybody, a lot of other people in the world, but I also have all these animals that are depending on me. And I like to be competitive with my barrel racing, with my horse. And not only is it important to keep my horse in shape, but it's also so important for me to keep myself in shape so that I can do them justice as well. So, it makes me strive to be the best person that I can, and it's important. So then you started working at Burn a little bit through COVID, and you mentioned, I know you had a major life altering moment, to put it mildly, I guess. So if you want to kind of talk about that.
yeah, absolutely. So you kind of said you only get one shot at it, right, at life, and this is sort of um, obviously transitions directly into the conversation we're about to have. So it was 2021. So my mother actually moved to Alabama in 2019, I believe. So it was after COVID. I didn't really see my mom a ton, right, since COVID. So my sisters and I were going down to visit her. So keep in mind, this whole time as we talk about this, I wasn't even home when this really happened. So I was visiting my mom for a
Miles
long
away.
weekend.
We're in New York State. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes, we're in New York. So this was Alabama. So long, big distance away. And I was visiting my mom basically for a long weekend for Mother's Day. I'd flown out Friday and was going to come home Sunday. Well, Friday afternoon, only a few hours after I got there, I was hit by a car, and I wasn't in a car. I was in a crosswalk on a motorized scooter. So, hit by a car while crossing the street on one of these scooters, and my long weekend turned into a very more extensive trip. And just to touch on some of the injuries, we can kind of go from like the head down, but as far as like lacerations, that kind of stuff, damage to my arteries in my neck, broken ribs, broken nose, broken wrist, some internal stuff as far as like, liver lacerations. But whenever I talk about this and what people saw the most and what affected me physically moving forward in kind of like my life, my career, my job, was my lower extremity. So I had a broken ankle on one side and a broken tibia and fibula on the other side. So that's really kind of in your shin. So that put me down and out for quite some time as far as the recovery aspect of it. So there were the things that you see, and then there were the internal things that you don't see. So even as like the physical, bones that were broken and that was healing, there was a lot of internal stuff too, that I had to focus on. And that, as far as kind of just, like I said, it's like putting me down and out for a little bit, and really just affecting my whole entire life, from being someone that was active, that was a personal trainer, and then going into being like, okay, well, now you're in the hospital and now it's going to be a long recovery, and you're lucky to even still be here, let
That's,
alone,
yeah.
you know don't worry about work the next day. Like, that's not happening right now. So
Yeah, I didn't know you at the time, but I knew some people that were close with you at that time. And I mean, yeah, like especially based upon what you've described, like you're lucky to be here. And that's when you talk about life altering moments, that is probably as life altering as they get. Um, but and I can see how that would be so hard when you get into an accident like that. The first thing that you want to do, well, I mean, I'm all broken, like it's all over, I'm just gonna lay here in bed
right.
and I'm a vegetable for the rest of my life, like, so I guess at this point, do you want to kind of talk about like right after it happened, when you finally came to, like how, what was going through your mind? How did you begin to even comprehend what happened to you?
It's funny you ask that, because I say, like, well, you're not going to work anytime soon. I do remember waking up, and obviously foggy. There was medication and that kind of stuff, a lot of pain management. But I do remember waking up in some sort of operating room or something like that. And I'm like, what is happening? And they said, you were on a scooter, you got hit by a car. And I was like, all right, makes sense. Yes. Do you remember being on a scooter? Now I'm here. And then of course, I don't even know like the actual time frame. At some point overnight, I wound up in a hospital bed in a room, and I was more stable. And in the first, I would say, because this happened probably 5 or 6 o'clock at night. So by 4 a.m. the next morning, I had already texted the group chat of trainers here and our owner at the time. And I'm like, listen, not a big deal. It's gonna be fine.
No
But like,
big deal.
just want to make sure, and like, don't freak out. But like, I have a place to come back to and train when I'm ready, right? And again, I didn't have to put a timeline on that, but that was my first thought. And I know, like you said, this isn't an ad for Burn Boot Camp, but it's just a place that was very near and dear to my
Yeah.
heart, and it goes hand in hand with being such a physical, um, you know, career that I have, and being in a community like you mentioned. It goes hand in hand with my first. I was like, I don't know when, but like, I will be back, and that's sort of honestly where. And I looked back, like a few months after, I'd searched through my text messages and was like, what time was it in the morning when I texted them? And it must have been like 4 or 5 a.m. before camps had started here on a Saturday. And I was like, I just got to let them know, hey, I'm not going to be back for a little bit. We'll figure it out, but I'll be back. And that was truly one of my first thoughts. Of course, making sure my family knew I was okay. Where my brothers, or my brother, my sisters, who's coming to visit, who's going to be in town. And then the next thought really was like, what's going to go on with Burn? Don't worry, I'll be back. So it does speak a lot to the community, and I will touch on that a little bit, what got me through. But it really, like, that's 100% truth of where, when it all started coming together, my brain originally went.
So it's nowhere's near as like life threatening or whatever as your story is, But it's funny that you say that because when I was 18, I was driving back from college for the weekend and we'd had a snowstorm, but the roads were clear. But I was driving my pickup truck and hit a snowdrift. And so I, went sliding into the median. I didn't hit anybody else. Like I was perfectly fine, but I've never gotten an accident before.
Right.
I'm all by myself in the middle of, February, and I think we'd gotten like 4 or 5 feet of snow. Like it was like a major snowstorm. So I'm like, well, the first thing that I do, I call 911 because I had no way of getting out of said snowbank in the median of the major highway. And the second thing I do is I call my mom and I'm crying because I was just 18 years old and I was so stressed out about it. And the first thing that I say to her between sobs is, I'm not going to be home to milk the cows.
Listen,
So
it puts it into perspective. The first things you think about are usually the most important.
I was so worried I was not going to make it home to milk the cows. And she's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And I was like, well, I think I'm okay, but I don't know if my truck's okay. And I don't know how I'm going to get home, but I'm okay.
Right.
So, I mean, it was just funny because like, that's the first thing I went to is work
Right.
also, but yeah, I'm
And
not
as
going
we
to be
talk
home.
about this too, I mean, because I do share this story more, I would say less often than I used to. When I, after my recovery and stuff, I share the story a lot with people at the gym that may be going through things. And as we talk about this today too, I don't want people to think that has to be something as extenuating maybe
Yes.
or physically extenuating as what I went through. I think a lot of people can relate to even some like mental struggles that go on
Mhm.
or things that are going on in your life, whether it's taking care of other people or, you know, there's a whole everyone's going through something. So as we talk about, this and how it affected me and the journey and that, I do want people to really think about and relate it to whatever they may be going through at this time. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, it doesn't have to be like such a complete, you know, life altering moment,
Right.
even physically. But yeah, that's what I always say is like, always smile to people, always be kind. You never know what the other person is going
Right.
through. And that is so important just to remember in your day to day life. Like, someone might come off as a jerk, but they could just be super stressed. There could be
Right.
something going on with their family. Someone might be very ill. Someone may have recently passed away. Like that's something always to be mindful of.
You never know.
Um, yes. So let's get into the recovery, the long road to recovery.
Yes.
So,
Uh,
yeah, I mean, what does it even look like to recover from something as severe as that?
a lot of it was really like a day by day situation. So like, when that happens, again, like the first thing I thought of was like burn, when do I get back there? But that really was, and this is something again that I talk about with our members here is like whether it is an injury or whether it is, a circumstance that you're in, like you can't do it all at once. Um, if you're focusing on this big goal of whatever it may be, you're already setting yourself up, I think, more so mentally for failure. And you have to focus on the small things along the way. So, I was in the hospital for a little over 2 weeks. There were some complications where I had, kind of a second scare and I had to go in for a procedure there. And then it was out of the hospital. Then I was out of the hospital, but I wasn't home yet. So I was like, okay, so now I got to work on when do I get home? Then it was, all right, I actually came to Burn the day after I got home just to sit here in my wheelchair and hang out with everybody. But, I was gone for almost a month before I came home. And then it was next thing was, I can't walk yet, right? When is the timeline of walking? Then it was, when is the timeline of my first workout? It's going to look a lot different than, but what it used to. However, and there was no lower body leg day workouts for a while, but it was like, when can I do an upper body workout? And so it was all those little steps, one at a time, is what really helped, you know, make it not feel so daunting. Because if you're looking at it in this big picture of all these things you need to accomplish, it's going to feel like you're never going to get there. If you
Mhm.
focus on even something that seems so little, I mean, it had like broken ribs, so it was hard to breathe, and they had breathing treatments and that kind of stuff. And you're like, I don't know if anyone's ever been in the hospital. They have a breathing thing, your apparatus you breathe into, and you're trying to get it to go
Mhm.
higher, right? You might have even experienced that with your pneumonia. I don't know. And
Yeah.
I was always trying to get it higher, right? And then when they said, okay, you don't need this device anymore, I'm like, great. So all those little steps along the way, not only, I mean, they're not little, really, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, that's a big that's a big step. For someone
Yeah.
who's healthy and fine to breathe into a tube is like, okay. But for me, in that moment, it's all relative. So
Yeah.
what is my next step? What is my next, big thing that might seem small to others that I'm going to celebrate, because it makes you feel accomplished. And
Yeah.
when you celebrate those things along the way, it makes you appreciate yourself and feel more confident, feel better, because that eventually, if you do that one at a time step, the big goal is going to be there at the end, but you
Hmm.
can't do it all in one leap. It's got to be little steps at a time.
Correct. Yeah, you can't run a marathon if you don't run it 1 mile at a time.
Right.
So agreed. And it is so nice. I love that mindset of, and it kind of goes along with like the whole, 1% better every day. Like just keep moving forward. You might have setbacks, but just remember, like you can get there. You just have to take it one step at a time.
Right.
Very important.
Right. And it's not always a straight trajectory either, right? You
Oh,
could have a step forward and then you have a step back, a couple steps forward, a step back. I mean, but as long as you keep that end goal in mind, again, nothing's too hard to overcome if you just focus on what the next celebration is going to be. What are what are you fighting for that next
yeah.
step? And then it adds up over time.
And definitely celebrating the small things along the way, because if you're so hard on yourself that you're like, well, I did this but I didn't get to my end goal yet, that just puts a negative connotation around the whole thing, and it makes it not as motivational, or it just makes it so much harder to get there when you don't just celebrate those small steps. You know,
And small for you might be big for somebody else, or big
correct.
for you is small for, that doesn't matter. It's like, and that's why I said it's all relative. Because depending on what you're going through, for you it's huge. For somebody else, it doesn't really matter what it is for somebody else. You
Yeah.
don't have to project other people's stuff onto you. What's big for you is big for you. And to keep that mindset, like celebrate the crap out of it. Like
Yes.
be excited about it. Like celebrate yourself, and you worked hard to get to that next step.
Agreed. Definitely have to do that. And that is one of the things that through like, my own, you know, putting myself first journey, like I sometimes do tend to get buried in the weeds of like, put your head down, go. Like I can just be a bull in a china shop and I just want to put my head down and I want to go there. And stopping and putting my head up above the ground and, being like, oh, look how far I've made it. Like,
Right.
and then just having that community around you to celebrate is so important. And
Absolutely.
here is your friendly PSA. If you do not have those around you that celebrate the small wins with you, whether they share the same goals, whether you hit the goal that they want to hit and they haven't gotten there yet, find yourself the right people to be around. And if they are negative and if they are not there to celebrate those wins with you, you don't need them. Get them out of here.
They're
So,
not your people.
yes, they're not your people. So I guess, do you have any like pivotal moments in your recovery that you were like, wow, we've got this. Like we are going to get there. I am going to be back. I've really like where it really sunk in that you're like, I've done it. I can see the end in sight. Like this is so extra exciting.
I truly think that it was kind of twofold. I mean, getting back to New York was a big step because, I was almost like in this bubble, where my mom was like taking care of me again, almost like I was an infant, like helping me get on my walker to the bathroom, that kind of stuff. And so it was almost like, okay, it's great now, but how is this going to translate when I get home? Right. So being able to
Yeah.
be home in my own apartment, in my world, and realize, okay, I could continue doing this not on my own, literally, but on my own in my own world
Yeah.
again. But on top of it, I think the biggest step was taking steps. Like I have a video I sent to my family because I had to start physical therapy, all that stuff. The day the boot came off and the orthopedic surgeon said, you can walk now. I think these like hobbly little steps. But that was literally when I was like, okay, this is where it feels the most normal, right? Because you're so restricted when you can't walk
Mhm.
around. So not being able to bear weight on one side of my body for 8 weeks, and then to physically take those steps, it was almost metaphorical, but it really was like that. That was when it was like, okay, we're able to move. No matter how slow we get there, we're getting there, and that was really big progress. forward. And, being home and being in my environment, like I said, I did come back to Burn a little bit just to watch, just to hang out, but just to be
Mhm.
around the people. And I know we talked about community, that kind of supported me the whole way through. That was just, it was big to get that sense of normalcy back by being in my own normal environment. And not to mention, that was the first time I'd ever gone to Alabama. I'd never been there before. So it was just it was a whole new experience all at one time that, being back home made it, that pivotal kind of moment.
Yeah, definitely. I can see how that would be. I could see how relearning to walk would be a pretty pivotal moment in your journey. That's for sure.
It's the stuff you don't realize that you don't have to think about doing until you have to think about doing it.
Correct. I cannot even imagine. And I mean, I think you and I are either the same age or very close in age, and I cannot imagine having to relearn how to walk at this point. It just, I mean,
It's
I'm
kind of
gonna
like
keep
riding
it.
a bike, kind of not.
I'm
You
gonna
get it
keep that
back,
off
but
my to-do list.
yeah,
Thanks. Like,
yeah.
yeah. So I guess how has your perspective on life, like has your perspective on life changed since all of this? Or have you always kind of had that perspective? What has changed in your mindset?
Well, it's funny that you just brought up finding your people because I know it's easy to say, cliche, live life to its fullest. Of course, I feel that way now, more so than I used to. I always used to kind of be like a do what makes you happy type of person, and you only have one life and that kind of stuff, which is a great way to live, especially when something this um, catastrophic and life altering does happen. It makes that so much more into perspective.
Mhm.
But what I really did learn is making time for the people in your life and the things that bring you joy, the people, the things, the experiences, because I was in a full-time job that I wasn't crazy about. This was my part-time gig. I was in a relationship that I knew wasn't really the best, and I thought maybe this would change that. This would make our relationship a little bit better with a new perspective on things. And it really wasn't until it was literally 8 months later where I left that relationship and I left that full-time job and started focusing my time on I was then here as a trainer full time, and I did spend more time with my loved ones, with my family that I do have around, with my friends that are here. And you know we're all, we have things in life we don't enjoy doing, right? Like there's stuff you got to do every day to get through life, but when you have that time to spend doing things that make you happy, it it just your quality of life is so much better. And it might not be, like I said, every part of your day. Some people don't have jobs that they love, or they're doing things that don't make them necessarily the most happy, but you have to find something and surround yourself with things or people that bring you joy, because it really, once you get out of the situations that don't bring you joy and replace them with things that make you truly happy, it makes life so much different, in a way that I literally look back on that and I'm like, I don't, this accident never happened, I don't know if I would have left the situations that didn't make me happy. And I
Yep.
can only imagine how, really unhappy I was and would
Mhm.
still be, without having this change of perspective.
Yeah. It definitely, it definitely is a really important thing. And hopefully people find, hopefully people that do have themselves in a bad relationship or a job that's just a toxic work environment, things like that, like hopefully you don't need that life altering thing to happen to you in order to put yourself first and do what is right for you, because you know money is not everything, but your health and your happiness is everything. And when you are happy and healthy, the ones around you, it's so much nicer for them and it makes them so much happier. And I know a lot of things that we do at the gym, is being a good example for our children, like making sure that they see us out there putting ourselves first, like taking care of our bodies, doing these big things, letting them know that they too can do big things. And that's just such an important part of setting them up for a successful future as well. So, um, so I guess, what was the timeline like? I mean, you get walking again, you start working out again. Like, how long did it take from your accident until you were kind of back where you were pretty much out of physical therapy and doing, all the workouts, I guess, back at the gym? And I think leg
Yeah.
day is probably the hardest.
It
One.
was, and I was actually still in physical therapy. So the accident happened in May.
Mhm.
It was May 7th. And then by July 9th was my first day back here. But again, that was not a leg day. It was an upper body day. And of course, I was modifying everything. I just wanted to be here and kind of see what my body could do
Yep.
without pushing it, just kind of see how everything felt. Um,
Especially in the
but
fact you said you broke your wrist too. So an arm day is still a little bit
yeah, I think it was
like
like
getting over
fractured.
a
I actually
broken.
don't really know the full scope of all the things I think that happened, but there was definitely some issues there, and even like overcoming rib injuries, like that's
Mhm.
tough. It's all almost like a waiting game in patience. And so then in July was when I took my first camp and I started physical therapy. By the end of August, I really sort of stopped physical therapy because everything we were doing was majority lower body leg day things, and I said, I'm going to go back to the gym and I'm going to do all these things on leg day instead. Right.
Yep.
So, once my orthopedic doctor kind of was like, you're good, to not do physical therapy if you don't want to anymore.
Mhm.
Um, but because I'm in the environment where I know how to safely do things here, on top of learning the stuff I did at physical therapy, was when I started. It was probably end of August when I really kind of left physical therapy. And then I was back to with modifications, and I still do modify things. And this is almost 3 years later.
Mhm.
Um, but like to as full strength as I could have been, in September, and I think mid-September was really when I did my first camp back as a trainer. So it was a good, 4 months at least before everything kind of started to feel as normal as possible again, knowing that down the line there was still, strength building and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff. But
definitely.
overall, being in a place where it was as normal as it was gonna be, working my way back up. So
Definitely. And it's insane and it's great. So we do have the pleasure of working out with our trainers sometimes. They'll come and take classes right alongside of us. And it's amazing to see just knowing like what you've been through, seeing some of the things that you can do with your body is just such an inspiration for everybody. And it's don't do it. I'm watching
no,
you,
I
don't do
just
it.
I just think that, unfortunately this happened, but I've never had anything really catastrophic happen. I've never broken a
Mhm.
bone. I've never done any of that. So a big part of what we do here is meeting one-on-one with members, and we get to know members on a deep level.
Mhm.
And there's so many things that, again, that might not, there are actually a lot of physical things that members come to us with injuries and that stuff. That's almost the easy stuff to like guide them through. But a lot of stuff that's just a mental struggle, and where this
Mhm.
is an analogy of what I went through, where it translates to what they go through. And if this didn't ever happen, I don't think I would be able to. I think I'm okay with my job. I don't think I would be as good at my job and being in this role if I didn't experience this, because there's a cliche things you can tell people, or the stuff, but if you don't relate to it, it's
Yeah.
hard. And I never, thankfully, until this point, had anything really, you
Mhm.
know, that affected my life like that, and then really had me with those setbacks. So now I am able to be on the floor modifying with somebody, and I'm like, hey, I do it too, or sit
Yeah.
down and have a conversation where I can relate to people, that maybe I wouldn't have been able to do, if this had never happened.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had to do some modifications, especially as of late with some things that I'm going through. And, it's okay to modify, like, you're still there doing it. And
Right.
that's what's important. Like, you showed up for yourself, you're there, you're doing it to the best of your ability without hurting yourself further, and you're helping your body heal, which is
Right.
the most important. So, I 100% get that, and I absolutely love it. So I want to switch gears kind of because it kind of all goes hand in hand. So this coming Friday is International Women's Day, which obviously is a really great day to celebrate women and all that they can do. So also, women in agriculture and just people in agriculture in general, mental health is a huge, and just, I mean, not even just in agriculture, but, I'm just saying agriculture specifically at this point, but mental health is a huge, huge problem. And it's something that, people just like to kind of brush it under the rug. It's a taboo topic. Let's not talk about it and hope it goes away. But I'm here to tell you it will not go away. And just I guess some like little statistics which are scary, and it puts things into perspective. Farmer suicide rates are 2 to 5 times higher than the just normal national average. Like, Not to mention, you think of like less than 2% of the population in the United States is part of agriculture. But you take that population and you just multiply for that type of statistic, it's so scary. And I mean, I know people personally that have, you know, essentially that's what happened to them and they were in agriculture and they just couldn't take it. Um, and making sure that as people in agriculture, like we have a population to feed, like that is important. But what is also important is taking care of ourselves because if we're not here to, you know, if we're not here to produce that food, then who's going to? So making sure that if you need help, please, please, please reach out to someone, anyone, and have it be known. If, you know, no one should judge you. There are many numbers you can call to get help. Um, and other statistics, like over 97% of farmers have some sort of depression, with over 67% of that being classified as severe depression. Um, which with agriculture and the majority of our products not being able to set our prices, like we kind of were price, I heard the quote somewhere is we are price takers, not price makers. So it's so hard when you work so hard for a product and you don't get to set that price. You're getting paid whatever the formulas basically pay you. And it's so government controlled and there's just so it's such an intricate thing. But it's so hard um you know, for example, like I've told some different people that don't have a lot of things to do with agriculture, like as a dairy farmer, my main priority is to, you know, produce milk for communities. And when you get $20 for 100 pounds of milk, which is actually higher than what we're getting right now. So think of it this way. If I sell milk at $20 per hundredweight, but with everything going on and all the prices, people back in the 80s made $20 a hundredweight for their milk. So we're talking 40 years of difference. And the inputs, I mean, labor is, you know, 5 times higher to pay for, fuel, like, I mean, crazy amounts higher. So, like, whoever's listening to this, like, there are people out there that understand what you're going through. You need to just tell, you know, go ask for help, find somebody. If someone doesn't listen, find somebody else. Don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Find, you know, find someone that'll listen and someone that will help you. But please don't think that you ever have to go through something alone. So that is my agriculture TED Talk. Thank you for coming. So I want to get into one of the things, you know, and I don't necessarily think that I classify myself. Sure, I have, you know, down days. I have down or days, you know, where I'm like, man, why am I a farmer? Like, why do I subject myself to some of the different things that we have to go through? And one of those things that has helped me cope and deal and just even to just get away from the farm a little bit is so important. And exercise has really been that thing for me. Um, and at first my family was just like, I don't know what kind of crazy like binge you're on, but like it's probably not gonna last. And if I was just going to like a regular gym, you know, where I worked out by myself and came home, it would not have lasted. Like I've been there, done that, tried it, it doesn't work. But what I did is I went and found a community that cares about me. They care about when I show up. They care about me being there and they care about my well-being, whether it be physically and mentally. And it is just so nice. Even just as someone in agriculture, it's so nice to go somewheres and I don't I don't have to talk about agriculture while I'm there. Like I can just forget about the rest of my life as it is and I can just talk to people about other things or just be silent and, you know, leave everything there at the gym on the floor and just it makes me feel so much better. The endorphins released. It's just it's definitely something that has helped me immensely. So Francesca, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about exercise and its impact on mental and physical health, especially being a woman.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think a lot of people, I would say more so, understand the physical benefits. Before my accident, I was probably in the best shape I've ever been in. And I think that that probably helped contribute to a lot of um, the ability to recover, to survive, all of that kind of stuff. Um, but we talk about getting stronger and showing up for ourselves, and I think the bigger piece, and even as someone, when you came in the door, I know what we talked about as far as goals, and I would say probably 99% of the women, especially, that come in the door want to lose weight, had kids, they grab their belly and they say, want to lose this, right? I want to lose literally 5 pounds, right? And I think, of course, there are those goals that have to do with your body and your body composition and what that means. But the percentage of women specifically that come in the door, but there's men too. I have men here that have told me this, but the mental changes that you see, like you said, leaving everything at the door. If you, especially as women, we are usually caretakers, whether it is kids, whether it is husbands, wives, significant others, animals. You're taking care of animals, or you have a job where you're taking care of people. How much on a daily basis are you doing for you? And if you can carve out 45 minutes for yourself, and what I say all the time is, whatever you're going through, I'm not going to be able to change that, unfortunately. Whatever's going outside these four walls, I don't have the ability to change for you. But what I can do is give you a safe space to leave that at the door. I promise it will be waiting for you when you're done. Nothing's going to change, right? In 45 minutes when you're in here and you're taking time for yourself. And it's even just the stress relief of turning your brain off, leaving whatever it is going on. Again, the farm, the kids, the husbands, the what am I making for dinner tonight? All those things, and not, that's not going to change. Come in here and turn your brain off and make sure that you're doing something for yourself, because it is self-care. It is self-love. And self-care doesn't mean I'm going to get my hair and nails done every day, every week at the salon. It's, what are you doing to better yourself and to be able to be a better parent, to be a better significant other, and take better care of other people by taking care of yourself first. The 45 minutes that we get here, just changes so many people's lives, more than you could ever imagine, because we don't usually do much for ourselves. And if we are, it's usually last on the priority list when it should be top three at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, even if you don't have the money to go to a gym like this, or you don't have, some people that might be listening to this might be in a super rural area. You might not have access to that type of a gym. Shut your phone off or silence it. Go for a walk, go for a run, get outside, get sunshine. Just sit down and do some stretching. That's one thing that I've learned to embrace the past couple months is like, wow, I really enjoy just taking 15 to 20 minutes and just stretching. And it makes my body feel so good. And I always feel so much better for taking that time to just stretch out and be like, hey, I work these muscles hard. Like, let's give them some love. It'll feel good. And just working on, you know, taking deep breaths and just, yeah, leaving things, putting things outside for a little bit and just relaxing. I put on some music that I like to listen to and I just relax. And sometimes that's what you need. So, you know, while I highly recommend, if you do have some type of gym community like this near you, give it a try, make the time for yourself. But if you don't have the financials, if you don't have the time, if you don't have the location to do something like that, there's so many different ways that you can find ways for self-care. And just getting that little bit of physical activity. It doesn't have to be a crazy cardio workout. It can just be some lifting weights. Like it can be, like I said, stretching, going for a walk, just something, do something to move your body and you will not regret it. There's not one time that I've regretted going and working out or doing a little workout at home. Sometimes it really seems like it's a pain in the ass to do. And sometimes you're just like, oh, all right, I need to carve out time. Like today is so crazy. But yeah, there is never one time that I have regretted actually doing it. And I always feel so much better when I'm done. So that's just very important to remember. Um, So what kind of exercises, Francesca, do you find best for your mental well-being?
So I don't think as far as it goes, like you just kind of touch on for whatever for your circumstance, whatever works for you, and some movement is better than no movement. But especially in the industry that you guys are in, it's very physically, labor intensive. So whatever you can do to make sure that you are staying active, to help whatever that is, that's going to translate into helping your life become better or help you become better at what you do. But what I found the most is being here, because it is, like I said, more so. And now that the physical aspect of my life can only go so far, I can only push myself physically so far compared to what I used to. But it's not really about being here physically anymore. Same thing for me. And what you touched on is the community. So finding that group of people to be around is really what makes it for my mental health so much better. I love being around people. I'm a people person. I thrive off of that energy. And being able to interact and again do something for my body, that's great. We want to make sure that we're in good shape to be able to have a long lasting life. But being around other people that have that same mindset, and like we touched on a few times now, is if they're not in the same mindset as you or they're not on your side, they're not your people. Finding the people that are on your side and are there to build you up, lift you up. Because although we talk about fitness and that kind of stuff, in the industry that I'm in and how we know each other, it really does translate out into everyday life of making sure that you have that support to help you when you are going through whatever it may be. And I know you touched on suicide rates and that kind of stuff. If you feel alone, it makes the walls feel so much more closing around you. It makes it feel
Mhm.
darker than it is if you don't have the community around you to support you.
100%. And I mean, I have some of the best friends that I've made while working out. Um, and it's just crazy because before I would not necessarily seek, like, I mean, I had a couple friends that were outside of agriculture, but not really a ton. And those that I had aligned myself with, like, you know, it was either friends that I had through agriculture or for horses through horses. And, I had like a couple high school friends that I still stay in touch with, but not really, not much. And it's just crazy because a couple of these wonderful women that I have really bonded with, and we are such a support system together. But it's actually kind of a breath of fresh air to have those people that they have no idea what my job, what my life in agriculture is like. And sometimes that's okay. And it's okay to just go and, you know, like agriculture is number one in my heart. Like it always will be. But sometimes it's okay to take a little break from it and go out and just be you without that, because sometimes while it's a really great thing, sometimes it can really be an anchor that holds you down. And just being able to, step away from it for a little bit and then come back to it is not a bad thing. And sometimes that helps give you even a different perspective on things with your day to day, which is just so helpful. All of the mindset things that we talked about earlier, and just one step at a time, like have those small goals on the way to that end goal and celebrating the wins. And that's something that I feel like people could do more of in agriculture as well, because a lot of people, like, we live in such a cyclical, I don't even know if it's called cyclical anymore because it's just treacherous. It is a treacherous business, and there's so many high highs and there's so many low lows, and it's a roller coaster. And just being able to celebrate those little wins along the way are so important, and not losing, you don't want to lose sight of that big picture, but just you have to be able to celebrate those little wins, because if you wait until everything's going to be perfect, you're never going to get there. So, just bringing that back into agriculture is so important as far as from a mental health standpoint. Um, so going back to the theme about women, in your experience, how does societal pressure, you know, expectations on women's bodies, like that is such a huge player in mental health. what are some of the things that you tell people when they go, you said they walk through the door, I want to lose weight, I want to lose this belly fat, I don't want to be bulky, I don't want to do this. How do you manage that? And, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we had a little bit of an idea of like what we were going to talk about today, and this was something that I am so passionate about because again, I'm mid 30s but it doesn't matter what generation you grew up in. It doesn't matter if you're 35, 25 or 75. I think almost every single female and probably in whatever walk of life you're in has some sort of beauty standard that we've all been told is what we have to be, a certain size, a certain weight, a certain pant size, or be smaller, be skinnier, be less. And to me, it's mentally exhausting because
Mm-hmm.
even you just said you're never, you could strive and strive and strive and if you're looking for perfection, you're never going to get there. That's the same thing. I mean, there's so many women that walk through these doors and they tell me they want to lose this amount of weight or get to be this size. And they start to realize that as they go on, that they don't even care about that anymore. Like it would be nice then if I gain a little bit of muscle or I lose a little bit of body fat. But the things that they came in here thinking that they need to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish are so insignificant. And as silly and cliche as it sounds, we're only going to get older. Our body's only going to look different over time. And even if you reach that exact standard of what you think perfect is, it's only going to be there for so long. And I've never actually had anybody meet that standard of what they thought it was and be like, okay, I'm done. I'm
It's a
satisfied.
moving target. You get
Right.
there and then you're like, no, we have
Right.
a
That's
few
not
more, like
that's not
keep
even it, and
going.
I'm not satisfied because it's so much deeper than that. And usually what it comes
Yeah.
down to is confidence. Really people that have, mentally, issues mentally with what they weigh or what they look like usually stems from something else. Usually we
Mhm.
were picked on or we were whatever it may be, right? Or whatever, whatever that translates to and wherever that comes from is deeper rooted than what you actually look like. And so it really is such a mental aspect of it. So what we try to focus on here and what I try to help with in my role is what can you do? And you actually said that in the beginning. It's like you're focusing on what your body can do. And it doesn't matter what the person next to you is doing. They're in a different chapter in a different book. It's
Mhm.
what you can do. So the biggest thing, like I said, we come into in this industry, and if I could flip a switch right now and change that mentality, is to focus on what you can do. And I was having a conversation with one of our other trainers who is a mother and now a grandmother. She said, we didn't even talk about weight in our house. That's what I grew up talking about.
Mhm.
My kids and my grandkids now don't know what it's like to be skinny, right? Or like as a standard, as a beauty standard, as a whatever it may be. We talk about being strong. We talk about being confident. We talk about, you know, the things that we can do, and weight's not even a topic of conversation in our house. And unfortunately, in the wherever you are and how you grew up, and if that's somewhere where you're at, it's unfortunate that that's fallen on us now to now cope with, deal with, change the narrative. But I'm not a mom, I know you are, and you have two girls, and now you can set that standard for them. You have the ability to change the narrative. And as women raising women, or or other, or boys, changing that narrative and that standard of what it looks like to be strong, to be confident, to be whatever that may be. If we stick together and we continue changing that, we have the ability and the power to do it, because I think, quite frankly, we're all sick of living in that narrative. So if we
Yes.
can agree together to keep it moving in the other direction and focus on the things that we're able to do, it just mentally makes you so much better, because you're focusing on, again, what you don't weigh, what you don't fit into. Like, that's such a negative connotation. Wouldn't you
Yep.
rather celebrate the things you can do
Mhm.
and be proud of yourself, whatever that may look like, again, physical or not, if it's in your job and it's in, what you're doing as a parent, how you are as a spouse, the things that you can do, it just changes your mentality when you look at the positive aspect of things, rather than, again, what you aren't doing, what you can't do, what you're
Yeah.
not able to be able to do. It's all a mindset shift, and that's probably the biggest thing. I would say the biggest obstacle in the industry I'm in is to continue trying to help people change their narrative.
Yeah. I 100% agree with that. And it's changed my mindset a ton over the past year. Just, seeing things and, for example, even when I started, one of the first camps that we did, we did box jumps, and I looked at the 20-inch box jump and I was like, yeah, right about that. And you sat there and you said, you can totally do this. And you helped me and you encouraged me and told me that I could do it. And lo and behold, I convinced myself I can, in fact, do a 20-inch box jump. And then it was one class later, and you looked at me and you were like, Val, flip it up to 24. And I was like, you're freaking kidding me, right? And you're like, no, you won't know if you can do it until you try it. And lo and behold, I flipped it up. And sure, I failed, but I kept going and I kept going. And you believed in me. Everyone around me believed in me. And that in turn, I was like, I can totally do this. Like, I might be, you know, not in shape, a mom of three, like a farmer, like I hadn't worked out and like really done anything with my life as far as physical activity besides just the bare minimum. And it basically flipped a switch in me like, I can actually do this. Like, it doesn't matter what I look like, but that's something that if I work hard enough at it and keep just doing a little bit more and a little bit more, like I can totally get there. And I never thought that I would have some of the goals that I have to do, like some of my goals that I have set for myself now, like even a year ago, if you were like, oh, this would be your goal next year, this time, I would have told you you're crazy. And
I
that's
think you've told
important.
me I'm crazy plenty of times, but
I
yes.
definitely, and I still curse at you in my head sometimes, but that's all hearsay. As long as we're friends at the end of this, it's all good.
There we go. And it does. It comes from a place of love. And I mean, we could keep touching on it, but it is when you find the people around you that believe in you, that are there to help you along the way, it just makes the things seem not as hard when you have people in your corner.
Yes. So for those of you that don't know, Francesca is like the hardest, toughest trainer, and she does not put up with any bull crap.
Nope.
So
On the
there's
mic, when
that.
the microphone is on, it's a different Francesca. But
She
when the
she
mic
likes
is
to
off, it's all out of love. And then we're all friends afterwards.
yes, she likes to say it's okay if you hate me, that's fine. You'll love me later. So
There we go.
that's what matters. And yeah, we you know, we
It's
throw
all
you
out of
the
love.
dirty
It's
looks and
all
do
out
all
of
the
love.
things, but we do it anyways. Otherwise, we're scared you're going to come over to us, and that's just not something we don't want to draw attention to ourselves.
No.
Oh my gosh, I love it. So what tips do you have for women who need to navigate barriers, such as time constraints, childcare, societal expectations? Like what are your recommendations? And we've touched on this a little bit, but like if you're having a conversation with someone who's like, oh, I just can't do it, or I just can't find the time, how do you go about like encouraging them to take that first step?
So we always say here is like finding your why, because if you time is almost, is probably the biggest thing I hear. I don't have time to do it. You're never gonna have more time, right? And there's only 24 hours in a day, and it's what you make of that time. And there's always gonna be maybe a day where you think you're gonna have more time, but that time gets filled with something else. And you are a mom, and your kids are only getting older and be more active and be more into sports or school activities or whatever it may be. And then one day hopefully you're a grandparent, and then they're going to be around, and then with your life and your job, and there's never going to be more time. You have to find the time, and it doesn't have to be 45 minutes of a burn workout. It could be that 10-minute walk. It could be that 15-minute sit, relax, stretch session, and take time for yourself. When it comes to kids, the biggest thing I tell people with kids is look at the example that you're setting for them. And I know you touch on that as a mom, is they can see me do the things that are hard. And now I'm showing them that, without telling them you can do hard things, they're seeing it. It's, you're walking the walk. You don't have to talk the talk. And it really does boil down to finding your why. And your why is going to be different than mine. I'm sure your kids are a big motivation in what you do and why you do it. For me, it is the fact that I've been in a place where I am not physically able to do things. And that's something I want to make sure I am able to do forever. And whatever your why is different, but it's got to be that deep down root issue of what's going to drive you to do it, because there's never going to be a perfect time. But if you realize the benefits of it, of working out, of making time for yourself, of taking care of your mental health, then there's going to be a deeper issue as to what's going to motivate you and drive you. And even when you're not motivated, keep you going, because nobody wants to work out every day. Nobody wants to do these things for themselves every day. You wake up, you brush your teeth every day. You wake up, you take a shower, you eat dinner, you're doing all these things that are they're not an option. So if you realize the benefits and the purpose and the what the reason for really doing this and how it's going to give you a long sustained life where you're healthy, and the other things that will trickle down to in your life and how your quality of life could be better, that's what's going to help you on the days where you're like, I don't have time for myself today. I'm not going to be able to do it. It's finding the one reason to do it when there's probably an endless list of reasons why not to. Because when one of those reasons is off the list, there's going to be another one.
Yes.
So I don't really like the word excuses, because I think most of the time the people give me reasons why they can't or why they're not able to, they're valid. They're not excuses, they're valid reasons. But you got to find that way to put yourself in on that priority list and find the real deep reason, just one that's most important to you, to make sure that it keeps you going.
I feel like we're in one of my focus meetings talking about prioritizing things. Because if you haven't all figured out yet that I am going 90 miles an hour in 80 directions all at once, all the time. And yeah, we have this conversation frequently, and I'm, I think it's starting to sink in, Francesca. Like, I think we've had this conversation like 3 or 4 times at this point, and now it's just I get the look and it's like, yeah, I need to prioritize myself. Like, I got this. It's fine.
It
And now
does,
I'm
but
pretty sure.
it makes you better at what you do. And again, like we're
Yes.
trying to talk in terms of what relates to me or what relates to you, but I think again, like we talked about in the beginning, if you take this and gear it towards whatever you're going through, like, and why it's easy for me to have this conversation with you is because I have a very similar conversation with almost everybody that I meet with, but the reason is different, right? Their why
Yes.
is different, or what they're trying to overcome is different. But if you boil it down, it's really the same conversation. There's a
Yes.
million reasons not to do X, Y, Z, but if you find just the one that's important to you, right? Especially walking through the doors here, something brought you here. I didn't, I'm just here to meet you when you get here, but there's something that drove you here in the first place.
Yep.
So if you're thinking about doing whatever it may be, you got to figure out that one reason to do it. What prompted you even to think about making that decision?
And as we always say, the hardest part is walking through the door.
Right.
Leaving things on the outside and putting yourself first by walking through the door. And that goes to any establishment, whether it be burn, whether it be just a gym that you can get to, whether it be, a fitness class or yoga, even a massage at this point, like just something for you. The hardest part is walking through the door or making that time to get that appointment scheduled to do something that's important to you. I mean, I don't know whoever gets a massage and regrets it. So I mean, there's
If we're
there's
giving
that
out
little.
massages, I'm ready to have one at any point in time. So we can make time for those,
Yes.
but again, we talk about self-care, and it can be that. It really could be anything that is going to help you become better mentally. There's so many options, and what
Correct.
works for one person might not work for somebody else. Like I said, we talk about burn because that's that common interest that we have and that common thread. It could be anything, depending on where you are and what that looks like for you.
100%. So what kind of misconceptions or stigmas have you seen, concerning women throughout your job? Like, we've touched on this also a little bit, but I just kind of want to drive this home. I mean, we grew up being similar in age. We grew up in those, yeah, again, those celebrities being like size 0, just emaciated, nasty. And I am a huge believer, especially now, that like strong is beautiful. Skinny is, there's no muscle, like you're not strong. Strong is beautiful. Being capable to do some of the things that you didn't ever think you were, that's beautiful. But like, what are some of the different stigmas that you see, throughout this?
I mean, that's probably the biggest one. And I literally, this, strong is the new skinny. And again, that's, if you are skinny, you are slim, you are size 2, it doesn't matter, right? But it's really being strong in whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be a physical, there's not a physical way to look. It's strong in what that means for you. And I think the biggest thing in the fitness industry that we see is like women can't have muscles, women can't be strong. And when we talk about having muscles, it doesn't mean look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. It means like you specifically in your field, you're lifting things, right? We want to have muscles to, like we said in the beginning, you got to sit down every day for the rest of your life. You know, there are people that are hitting assisted living homes earlier than they think they need to. I was talking with one of my coworkers today, and you don't think it's going to happen to you till it happens to you. And there's no way to reverse it when it gets too far in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Functional movements, like we talk about a move called the deadlift, like picking something up off the ground safely without injuring yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about being strong and having muscles. Like women should have muscles. You should be able to lift things up. Who's a mom and has kids, and we joke in the gym if someone's squatting something that weighs less than their kids put together. I see moms that think they can't lift a 20-pound dumbbell, picking up two children. One of them is in a car seat carrier, walking through the door. You are strong already. You do have muscles already. But then when it comes to picking a number on a dumbbell, we can't lift that.
Yeah.
So the running and the cardio and the doing cardio and core at Planet Fitness, like we've all been there, and that's fine if that's what you like to do, but it's really, we need to be able to have the muscles on our body to be able to sustain our movements day to day. And I will, give credit to another one of the trainers here, Heather, who says, I want to be able to move for as long as possible, as well as possible, forever, for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. Is I think we think that being strong means looking bulky and being like, no, we don't want you to look bulky, but you're never going to look like a bodybuilder unless that's your goal and you work really hard at it.
Yeah.
Being able to lift things and having muscles on your body, it's not what the perception is. It's not physically what the perception is. And you need to, just as you get older, women's bodies change, and you need to have that muscle on your body to sustain your movements and to sustain the life that you want to live over time, or even having the stamina, playing with your kids, running around with them, playing with your grandkids. We have like an indoor play place here where I've had so many moms that are like, I could keep up with my kids there, running through the tunnels, where I never used to be able to do that before.
Yeah.
And until you're able to do it without thinking about it, you don't really even know that that's a goal. When you
Yeah.
just leave 45 minutes at that place with your kids running around, or at the park, or pushing them on the swings, and you're like, wow, I didn't even realize until now, at this moment, that I just spent the last hour doing stuff I couldn't do before with my kids. And
Yeah.
those are the moments in life that matter the most. And you don't even realize how working out or how being active, does affect your day-to-day life, until it's something where you look in the rear view and you're like, I couldn't actually ever do that before, and now I
Hindsight's
can.
2020.
Yep.
100%. And, we have had a conversation before too, just even being a woman on the farm all the time, just the different things that I can do now, or just when it comes to lifting bags of grain, lifting different things. Hey, my form is better. I have less of a chance of injuring myself. Like I can do these things so much easier. Like it's amazing. We were throwing grain, my husband and I, a few weeks ago, and he even complimented me. He was kind of messing with me a little bit. He was up on the back of the truck. We had a whole pallet to unload, and he was like throwing 50-pound bags of grain at me. And I was kind of catching them with kind of one arm and like slinging them into the barn. And he was just like, oh, okay. And I was like, see, I do. I feel so much better. And I know how to lift with my legs now. Like I'm not hurting my back. I've always had a cruddy back, and just now knowing how to do different things, different motions that I'm doing, I find myself fixing my form myself, doing different things around the farm, which is just awesome because, these are movements that I'm going to need to do for the rest of my life. Like I don't ever plan on not being a farmer, not doing some of these things, but as I get older, especially just making sure that my body is well taken care of and that I don't sustain some stupid injury just from, lack of knowledge or lack of, trying to do what's right for my body. Those things are so important. So from a woman in agriculture perspective, that is definitely awesome. So I want to change gears a touch for the end. I always like to ask my guests a few rapid fire questions because it's just fun. Um,
All right. Well, if something flies out of my mouth really fast, I can't. I don't know if this is like a PG-13 show, but if things
you're
spew
good.
out, I'll do my best.
None of the questions should prompt like
Okay,
vulgarity,
good,
so we should be all right.
good.
Um, I don't know what kind of questions you thought I was gonna
I don't
ask.
know. Sometimes it just stuff flies out of my mouth, so I'll do my best.
Oh my gosh. All right. I know you're a huge consumer of string cheese.
Yes,
I know it's one of your favorite snacks because we
love
bonded
it.
over this right in the beginning of my burn era. Do you peel it or do you bite it? And I will judge you for the answer.
Okay, I will peel it,
Oh, thank God.
except for my dog Henry. He likes it as a treat, so I bite a little piece off first for
Okay,
him,
that's
then I
okay.
peel it. It's like that's insane. And plus, I'm Italian. I love cheese. There's many cheese sticks that aren't string cheese. If you don't want to peel it, buy
Yep.
the cheese sticks.
Yep.
What sicko? Do you know people that actually bite into it?
Yes, it's terrible. I did a poll on my Instagram stories once and it was like the most mortifying thing I've ever seen in my life.
Nope, can't be friends.
That's why I told you I would judge you, but I'm happy you made the right decision in
I
life.
know. I
That
was
is
like, uh-oh,
perfect.
this could go either way.
No, you're good. Gosh, you have to peel the string cheese. Like that is
It tastes better
definitely the
that
way to
way.
go. Ha! Agreed. So your favorite workout protocol to do, not to train, but for you yourself to do.
To do now, I would say is upper body strength. I think just because of limitations I have, sometimes leg
Mhm.
day is a little frustrating, and I do my best to do my best, but just being able to do some pull-ups or push-ups or something that, again, like women aren't always able to do that kind of stuff. And so to be able to do that and like just lift heavy stuff, sometimes it feels good.
Yes. Oh, and a quick side note. When you're embarking on a fitness journey, you have to be okay laughing at yourself, which is something that I embrace fully. When you mentioned pull ups, so at Burn, obviously the majority of the women that walk through the doors cannot do a pull up. I don't think I've ever been able to do a pull up my entire life. Like even in elementary school when we'd mess around in
Those
the
are
pull
the
up bars,
worst days. Why did they make us do that?
I don't know. So there's these rubber band, like these big rubber bands, and we put our feet in them, and they basically help us until we're able to do it on our own. And me trying to get in and out of the rubber band sometimes is like you need some popcorn and just to kind of sit back and watch because it's quite funny. But hey, what's life if you can't laugh at yourself
I was gonna
sometimes?
say life is only as serious as you make it. You just gotta live
Yes.
and live through it and have fun.
I enjoy laughing through life, as you're aware that I like to giggle sometimes through workouts just because I'm enjoying
Makes
myself,
them more
apparently.
fun and interesting. You should be doing stuff that, again, that brings you joy. And even when it comes to working out, like you gotta be doing stuff that you like to do. So it doesn't
Yeah,
feel like a chore.
agreed. What is your favorite protocol to teach?
Anything where people are sweating a lot and some curse words are flying out of their mouth. Those are usually cardio days. And just so like a little background on Burn is we do cardio days and we do strength days. And we have 6 days a week that we work out. We do Sundays are off. So we usually have 3 strength days, 3 conditioning days. But there's just different energy, when it's a cardio day, people, their energy is higher, they're moving quicker. And so I would say something even like today, it's called burst training, where there's very
Mhm.
short rounds where you're working and then you're resting. So I'd say the burst
She
training
says
really
rest in quotations,
in
mind you.
quotations.
It's not actual rest.
Or like it's called Metcon metabolic conditioning. That might be my favorite because the exercises that we do, there's almost like a bigger pool to choose from, but everyone's sweating and like working really hard, and my energy's higher when the
Mhm.
energy in the room is higher. The music playlists that we use are a little bit different, more upbeat. um and so like there are sometimes I wear, it's called a Whoop tracker, as a fitness tracker. It's not like an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. And there will be times where it's like, are you working out? And I'm like, no, I'm just training. But those are the days where the energy levels are higher because the movements are faster. So I would probably say metabolic conditioning, Metcon.
Sounds
The more
sounds
curse
about
words,
right.
the better. Our owners pay us by the swear words that our members drop at us. When we get swear words in our face, then it's extra,
Doing it
extra.
right. And it's even funnier now that the owners work out at the gym with
Yes,
us. And yeah, I enjoy,
they're
I'm not
feeling
gonna
it the
lie,
way
every
we
once in a
are.
while, I enjoy them yelling back at the trainer. Makes it fun.
Yeah, we got to be nice to those two though, because
They can make your life.
They make or break my life.
Oh gosh. So you go on vacation, adventurous or relaxing?
I would say relaxing. I've gone on like the only I'd say adventurous vacation I ever did. I did go zip lining one time in
Ooh,
Mexico when I was on like a cruise. It was an excursion. That was cool. But I think most of the vacations I go on are like tropical beach. My brother lives in California, so or my sister who lives in South Carolina. If I do go to try to visit them, they're very relaxing type of places. My brother got married in Mexico actually a couple of
oh,
years
cool.
ago, and that was in an all inclusive resort. I think I like adventurous things, but I would rather be somewhere where it's kind of opposite of my day to day, where I'm very
Yep.
fast paced and I'm moving. So the opposite for me that feels like a vacation is to be somewhere where I'm relaxing and anywhere warm, sunny. If there's water nearby, we're good.
Yes. So obviously cheese belongs on pizza.
Yes.
Nobody listening to this should ever disagree, or no one in general should ever disagree with that. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I don't mind it, but it wouldn't be my first choice. If it's there here again, I'm Italian. There's no wrong way, there's no wrong pizza. Would I
All
pick it
pizza is good
first?
pizza.
No. But if it's there, I'm still gonna eat it as long as there's sauce and cheese on it. I don't care what else is on there.
I like it. That's a good answer. As long as it's pizza, it's good.
Like I'm not gonna discriminate against any pizza.
Perfect.
It's not gonna happen.
Perfect. So also towards the end, I like to ask a random question that a previous guest on the podcast has left.
Ooh, okay.
So obviously my pool was limited for you because you're not in agriculture, but I've got a good one for you. If you could do one thing over in life, what would you do and why?
I would have chosen a different career. Um, I learned a lot. I loved what I did, but it wasn't the right fit. It was almost more like art should have been a hobby,
Mhm.
instead of a career path. And I think I would have done this a long time ago. And I think what I would have done is invested in a burn boot camp 12 years ago when it came out, in the beginning, gotten in on the ground level.
Yep.
But I think that this is just such a more fulfilling career. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of unfair when we're younger, we're 17, we're 16, figuring out what you want to do for the
Yeah.
rest of your life. And I don't know many people that are on the path they originally set out to do. But you live and you learn. And I think that being here in this moment and kind of again what we touched on in the past is being in the setting with the people that make you the most happy and how you're going to enjoy your life. I definitely would have done that differently.
Excellent. And what is your quote slash final words of wisdom that you would like to leave for everybody? What's one thing, like it can be something that just drives you every day, something that you want to live by, maybe something that need that reminder to stay, in a specific track.
Yeah, no, this is I'm a big sports fan. Little side note, tidbit of information. We live in New York. I'm a huge Yankees fan. I love football. I love sports, but I grew up a huge Yankee fan. Thought I was going to marry Derek Jeter one day. That didn't happen, but I always looked up to him kind of as a role model and as someone that just did life right.
Mhm.
And one of the things he said is you don't just accidentally show up in the World Series. And I think that that kind of goes a really long way for most people. If there's something you really want to get to, I don't think Derek Jeter, I know he actually probably did, woke up. He always wanted to be a Yankee, right? But
Yeah.
he didn't wake up one day and say, I'm just going to happen to accidentally get there,
Hmm.
and not only be a Yankee, but win as many World Series championships as he did. And that goes for life. You're not going to accidentally show up where you want to be.
Yeah.
You do have to work at it. But if you are passionate enough about something, nothing is off the table. Really, the sky's the limit. And if there's something you want to do, you got to work hard to get there. And so you don't actually accidentally show up there, but, with hard work and that kind of persistence, and if you're not right in the spot you want to be at, if you keep on working at it, you will get to the top of whatever that looks like for you.
I love it. That's a really good one. I like
My
that.
husband, Derek Jeter, it always comes back to him. So
My life, it's always tied to Derek Jeter. Derek
always tied
Jeter,
to
if
him
you're out
somehow.
there, I don't I don't think Derek Jeter listens to this podcast, unfortunately, but maybe he'll listen after today,
Hey,
You
that's
never
got to
know.
be a goal, right? We're gonna get him to hear your podcast.
Of all the people in the world, we want Derek Jeter to
I
listen
know
to
it
the
might not be up
podcast.
his alley in his wheelhouse, but you never know.
Yeah, you never know. Francesca, it was an absolute pleasure to chat with you. This is something, it's kind of popped into my brain a couple times over the last year. And then the other day it kind of just clicked in my head and I was like, yes, this is what we need to do. This is the direction we need to go. And thankfully you were on board for it. You do in fact have a public profile on social media. Do you want to share if people want to connect with you where they can find you?
Absolutely. So Font, F-O-N-T, part of my last name, Font Fitness on Instagram. And I appreciate you asking me to do this because I know you were almost hesitant, not sure, if I want to share my story and all that kind of stuff. And as I mentioned before, I don't do it as often now just because it's not as, not relevant, but people don't look at me and they don't see what I went through. So it's not as big of a topic of conversation, as it used to be when I was going through it. So, but I appreciate you finding time in your industry to find a way to, incorporate me into that and letting both of our worlds meld together. Like I said, we have that one common thread, but I think that's actually pretty awesome is we're both in two sort of different industries and different worlds. And we found that common thread where we can relate and that kind of stuff. So I appreciate you asking me.
I love it. And before we sign off, I mean, technically we complement each other well. We provide protein, like lots of protein, and you guys consume protein. So here we go. Like,
We're
see,
perfect.
so
we're
a
match made in heaven, Val.
For real. So I make the cheese and the whey and all the good things that have protein in them, and you push people to get their protein. So I think it works well. So
we couldn't have chosen it any better.
We definitely couldn't. And maybe I'll bring cheese in soon because when I was teasing to one of the other trainers there, she was like, I was like, oh, there's something big that's going to be happening. And she was like, oh, are you bringing in cheese again? Because, as the resident dairy farmer, when you bring in cheese to the gym, it's like a national holiday. So,
and that's how you find out who your friends are, is the people that appreciate you bringing in cheese for them. There were some extra sticks left over that definitely wound up coming home to me in my fridge. So anytime you want to bring in, like I said, I'm Italian and I will, just like I won't discriminate against a pizza, I will never discriminate against cheese. So
don't ever discriminate against cheese.
Got extras, you know where to bring them.
As the meme going around social media is, just remember there's weird people walking around on this planet that don't like cheese. We don't need them in our lives.
There's no place for that.
No. Awesome. Francesca, thank you so much for taking the time to hop on with me today. I am really excited about this conversation. And obviously I'm excited about where the journey is going to keep going from here. So awesome.
Thank you so much, Val.
Thank you. And we will see you all next week. I hope you all found something, some type of tidbit to take away in this conversation. Give Francesca a follow on social media. She always posts really inspiring, great things. And even if it inspires you to get up and move your body a little bit every day, that's, a little better than it was before. So that's really good. Have a great week and we'll talk to you next week. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and leave a review. You can find me on most social media platforms at Dairy Gal Val or online at dairygalval.com. Thank you so much for coming to the Dairy Hour.